Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies, recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Emilio.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Madeline. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. And you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on us. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we're doing a bonus episode. This one's a long time coming. We are going to talk about movies that have scarred us in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a scene, maybe there's something more structural, but we saw these movies when we were kids and they have stayed with us. And I'm excited because anybody who loves movies has a movie like this.
And perhaps people who don't like movies, because maybe this is why they don't like movies.
That's a great point.
Yes, it's common enough that we've also been asking a lot of our recent guests their stories about these experiences. So you'll hear a few of those coming up very shortly. We also put out a message on social media asking for the stories from listeners and other past guests. You'll hear some of those too.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I think this is our first time doing something like that.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed getting to hear people's experiences over the last few months. So I'm excited for everyone else to hear it as well. And I'm happy to kind of kick us off because I think mine is going to be a little bit different because the movie that I think scarred me was a kid's movie. And I think that's different from people saying like, oh, well, I saw a really scary, inappropriate movie when I was very young. I watched a kid's movie, ostensibly a kid's movie, which is Who Framed Roger Rabbit from 1988, directed by Robert Zemeckis. And there is one particular scene in this movie that has just continued to stick in my mind for the last, let's say, 25 years. I feel like I was around 8 years old when I saw this movie, which again is like an appropriate age, I think, to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. However, I was reading a little bit of the Wikipedia page, and it seemed like the CEO of Disney at the time actually did think that this movie was inappropriate for kids, and it was released under Touchstone.
Yeah, that's right. Famously not a Disney movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So technically not a Disney movie because the CEO of Disney at the time was like, this is clearly not totally kid-friendly. It's going to like sour our reputation a little bit.
There's a really interesting documentary on Disney Plus where they talk specifically about Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the success of that movie and how it was actually a driving force for them to restart their animation department.
Yeah, so I'm glad that this movie had positive effects. It did have a negative effect on me at 8 years old. And the scene in particular that really sticks out to me, if you've seen the movie, then you know that the main villain is a character called Judge Doom, who is played by
Christopher Lloyd, I think it is?
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is probably the first thing I ever saw him in.
Oh, no. So not Doc Brown?
Not Doc Brown. I don't think I would have seen those before the age of 8 necessarily.
Over the Cuckoo's Nest would be pretty starring at that age too.
Mine was he was the main angel of Angels in the Outfield.
That is true. Yeah. Okay, so it's possible that was around the same time. I'm not sure. Okay. But I will say, in Christopher Lloyd's defense, I think he does so fully disappear into this character
that he kind of does. Yeah.
I almost don't even fully recognize him on screen. But I keep trying to say Dr. Doom, but Judge Doom, his whole thing is that he has this like mysterious liquid that he calls dip, which is not like tobacco dip. It's like it's like an acid that he can use to melt cartoons because the cartoons in this world are invincible. They can't be killed because that's what cartoons are constantly. That's kind of the whole thing.
Right.
Cartoons are constantly being killed on screen.
Everyone's Wile E. Coyote.
Exactly. So like you can't throw a cartoon off a cliff. Like they will survive it.
Yeah.
So Judge Doom has created this like vat of acid that I think it does say it's like a combination of turpentine and some other stuff. But when he is demonstrating this acid, he like picks up this like little shoe that's like very puppy like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And it's like wiggling and like kind of squealing and trying to get away. And he just like slowly dips it into the dip. And it just completely like evaporates, and his hand comes up and it's covered in like a blood like red goo.
Oh, man.
It's very eerie. And I think it was specifically kind of the sounds of the like the cries for help.
Oh, yeah.
From this very puppy like little cartoon who looks like this, for those who have not seen the movie.
Yes, it's been a long time. I haven't seen this since I was a kid either. So, yeah.
And that really stuck with me. I think I had my parents turn the movie off. I'm not sure that I watched it all the way through as a kid because this really did upset me. I did rewatch it a few years ago. Like, I don't think I rewatched it until I was 30.
You really had to wait for that one.
Exactly. And luckily it did not freak me out at 30. I think it's like a perfectly good movie. I'm glad that I overcame it, but I don't think I'm ever going to want to sit down and revisit this movie.
And watch you reframe Roger Rabbit again.
Maybe once Robert Zemeckis dies.
In like a retrospective
exactly.
type of,
like going back
thing.
through the filmography, maybe at that point. I see kind of no other reason
Got it.
to revisit this movie.
Coming back to that, I mean, that movie was so groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah.
And I love me some practical effects, and the behind the scenes on the making of that movie is so fun.
Yeah.
Because of how much stuff is being pulled by wires and things off screen. There's a lot of practical fun stuff happening in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I believe it.
I gotta say though, it is a movie that you see the seams in a big way.
Oh, for sure.
I think.
In the modern era, for sure.
Yeah.
Like a kid today, like if I'm watching this movie in 1995 or whatever, it feels a lot more real to me then. Maybe a kid now would be like, well, obviously like this animation, like it doesn't look seamless.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
I have a question about the circumstance of you seeing it. Was it something that like your parents put on just thinking, oh, like this will be fun kids entertainment?
I think so. We had a like Saturday night movie and pizza tradition. And I think, sometimes I would get to choose the movie. Sometimes my older brother, my parents, I think we all kind of traded off.
Yeah.
I don't know who picked this movie. I imagine this was a Saturday night pizza, night kind of movie. I remember seeing it specifically at my house. I wasn't alive yet when it came out in theaters. I doubt it got any re-releases. So definitely saw it at home, probably just on a family movie night.
Yeah, well, that movie is, I think, one that actually gets brought up and like interestingly frequently. Admittedly, I did watch the movie in prep for this discussion. I had to know, not just because of your story, like yes, totally because of that, but just because of the general status of this movie as one that, as being one that people don't expect to be scary, but a lot of kids do think it is. So one past guest of ours, and he wasn't able to contribute his own story for this episode, but Brendan McDonald, producer of WTF with Mark Maron, is a parent who made that assumption for his own kid. That he like showed his own son. He told a story about it on one of the WTF bonus episodes about showing his son the movie, thinking that it would be a really fun experience for his kid. It was a fun experience for him, and that his kid was kind of terrified by it. I
see why parents would assume this is a movie that you can show to a child.
Yeah. The scene in that case that his kid felt he was scarred by was also pertaining to Christopher Lloyd, but a later scene in the movie when it's, spoiler alert for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's revealed that this character is a toon.
Well, that was also very scary.
So this is what I thought you were going to bring up.
Yeah.
I didn't make it that far.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, I thought that was going to be it because that's something I remember from having seen it as a kid, which is that there's that moment where he gets squashed by the road roller.
Yeah.
Something my son would absolutely love right now.
Same year as A Fish Called Wanda, by the way.
Good point. So the big year for antagonists being crushed by construction vehicles. Although, actually, both of them do have a kind of a second kind of wind. You're absolutely right.
A little more literal in A Fish Called Wanda.
Also, no, I'd say literal in.
You're right. You're right.
But there's that moment where he does it, and then his eyeballs fall out.
Yeah.
And then his eyes are replaced by cartoon eyes, and that is like, it's a little uncanny and kind of creepy.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think when I rewatched it a few years ago and I got to that point, I was like, yes, it is good that I did not make it this far as a kid because this is also very scary. And this is even kind of freaky as an adult.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that I quickly want to say Dougie's because I think that kind of segues in. His was I'm going to get the year wrong. I should have looked it up. I believe the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah.
Not the one from more recently because he is an adult. But the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie, and he said specifically the Goombas, and I was like, well, what's scary about Goombas? Because I haven't seen this movie. And then I looked up the Goombas.
Yeah, they're terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Why do they look like that?
They're
so scary.
Yeah, they are horrifying.
My understanding is that in this film universe, they're like de-evolution versions of whatever the dinosaur kind of creature that like Bowser is.
Right.
It's messy.
Yeah, literally messy. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be something to do with Dennis Hopper being in that movie.
He's just a scary guy.
Yeah.
Which is
imagine
par for the course.
Blue Velvet when you're too young.
No, thank you.
That is a hard no for me as well.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention about Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
No, I mean, I would say don't show this to your kids. I think if you haven't seen it, I think it's a perfectly fine watch as an adult. But I do think, as you said, Julian, a lot of kids, this sticks with them. And I am one of many. And there are dozens of us.
You said that it's PG-13, right?
It's PG.
Oh, it's PG.
Yeah.
But it is one of those movies that really rides the line in more than just the ways we've described. There's also like a lot of innuendos.
Yeah, it's a very sensual movie.
Yeah,
a lot
Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Yeah. But like, not that it's a literal quote, but a lot of like dang nabbit kind of language where it's like, they want to say something more vulgar than that.
Some Joe Pesci and Home Alone
Yeah, exactly.
energy.
This is one of the like core texts for me is Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah.
I was 4, I believe, when I saw that for the first time.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal.
How did you end up watching?
How did you as a 4-year-old find yourself in front of this film?
Yeah.
No, it was my mom, actually. She used to, on Sundays, every few weeks or so, my mom would braid my hair. And that meant that I was sitting between her knees on the floor, stuck with her for hours and hours and hours. That's like a 8-hour process sometimes for like really elaborate hairstyles. Just locked in together, and I couldn't leave. And she decided, I don't know if it was my uncles or somebody else came over to the house, and they had rented it from Blockbuster, of course. And they were like, "Oh my God, you have to see this movie," as one does in 1992. And it was Silence of the Lambs, and I don't know if she knew
Wild
how gruesome it was, or I'm going to try to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she didn't know how vile that movie was. But yeah, it stuck with me. We took one break maybe, and I covered my eyes like once or twice. But other than that, yeah, Silence of the Lambs, 4 years old.
Wow. Do you remember any specific imagery from that viewing?
Oh, absolutely. You would think it would be like the iconic, like, Buffalo Bill dancing scene, but I actually don't remember that at all. What I do remember is Hannibal Lecter biting off the cop's nose.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
Right.
How
my
far
God.
in the movie did you get?
Did you watch the whole thing?
Oh, we watched the whole thing. Yeah. What do you mean?
Wow. Yeah.
Saw the whole thing.
Well, like the beginning of the movie, if you're like paying no attention to the dialogue, it's not that scary.
No, it's just a cop procedural at first. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not really till you see like the Buffalo Bill stuff, if I remember correctly, that it starts to get like horror movie vibes.
I find it interesting that it's the nose biting, because I think for a 4-year-old, that would be the most visceral.
Yeah, that's
thing.
something that a 4-year-old can understand.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I was like, oh my God, people can do that?
Yeah. And I feel like even at that age, because most of the Hannibal scenes are just dialogue at first, but you can kind of pick up that this guy's supposed to be freaky.
That's true.
Yeah, his eyes, Anthony Hopkins' dead eye stare, that also stands out from the first watch. I just remember being so scared of him for so long after that movie came out.
Yeah.
I love that Martha Stewart literally dumped him after that movie came out because she was so scared of him that she couldn't separate.
Wow. Wait, I didn't know that.
I don't know that.
They were dating at the time, and she was like, actually,
oh wow.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Even thinking fictional you is capable of any of that is like a deal breaker.
She's so messy. She wrote about it in her memoir where she was like, he was like staring at me one day, and I just saw Hannibal Lecter, and I was like, yo, I can't do this. I think he's much more scary than Buffalo Bill. The Buffalo Bill stuff didn't even register to me at any point, really.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, actually. And by cool, I mean not that you were exposed to this when you were 4, but that the more cerebral scares of that movie were the things that stuck with you the most.
Yeah, that is my
and the
my
nose biting,
cinephile
Yeah.
and the nose biting. That is my cinephile origin story.
Awesome. So cinephile origin story. Yeah, you started by saying that this was a core text for you.
For sure.
What's your relationship with Silence of the Lambs today?
I love this movie. It's in and out of my Letterboxd top 4. This is one of my favorite movies. I own it on Criterion. I picked that up last year at the the 50% off sale. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Barnes and Nobles, baby.
Being in. And it was my gateway drug into my favorite genre, which is slow burn thrillers, mysteries. So, I was too young, but it really did shape my taste as a adult, as a movie lover, as a art enjoyer, appreciator. It's the reason why I love, Nightcrawler and Seven, Zodiac, Manhunter, all of those movies is because of Silence of the Lambs. So I think all in all, I wouldn't take it back. I'm glad I saw it, and I'm glad I got to see it in that moment in culture at the time,
Awesome. I love that.
I can relate to that to a degree, but I think the very significant difference is that I first saw the movie at the right age.
I was going to ask, what is the right age for Silence
What
of the
age is
Lambs?
that, Julian?
I first saw it at 17.
17.
Yeah. So that movie is a core text for me too. When we did our episode about it, which was a year and a half ago, I said in that episode that it was the first movie that I felt like I studied. I had been assigned to watch it in a kind of introductory film class that I was taking at the time.
Oh, awesome.
And there were a lot of really good movies we watched for that class, but this was the first one where I just kind of felt like I really went down the rabbit hole of reading about the mechanics of the script and where it exists in pop culture, what came before it, what it influenced. So that was a core text for me, although not in the sense of being frightened by it.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, you're right. 17 is maybe a better age. I see where you're coming from, I guess.
Yeah, who knows? If you hadn't seen it at 4, who knows if it would have had the same resonance for you?
Yeah, it all worked out.
Yeah, it did. I'm glad it all worked out.
That is a great point. And then I saw 7, and I was 7 when that movie came out. So I was.
But not when you saw it.
Or were you 7?
I saw it. I was about 7 or 8 when I saw that movie, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, damn.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh. That's another one. Holy cow.
So, Michael, what is a movie or a TV show that you first saw when you were too young to watch it?
Well, it's really easy to answer that question because I remember it super clearly, right? Which I guess maybe happens a lot in these cases. And so was Poltergeist.
Ah,
And,
yeah,
I mean, I think
classic.
the reason that I, watched Poltergeist, right, is because it was PG.
Uh-huh.
And you kind of think like, oh, this can't be that scary of a movie, right? It's probably like okay for like a family audience or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember
Early
PG
80s,
I was
usually.
probably like 9, maybe.
Okay.
Because I remember like watching it in a room that later became something different. I think my dog was there, and I only had a dog for a really short period of time.
Okay.
The dog hated Poltergeist.
Understandably.
And,
A lot of weird stuff
so
with
I
that
mean,
TV.
it's so the thing that really struck me and scared me in Poltergeist is the part where the tree breaks through the window and grabs the
Yeah.
kid.
In
And
the
after
bedroom.
that, I hated because my in my bedroom, right, I was like my bed's by a window.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I'd always
there's trees
imagine like,
outside.
yeah, exactly. Like something is going to come through that window. And like, I don't want to face that way while I'm falling asleep because something, I mean, not that would help it from,
I don't want
Right.
to
it's
see
not
it
going to
grab
matter.
me.
Right. But I
Yeah.
remember feeling that, right? Like, I don't want to look out the window because there's like
Yeah.
something scary out the window. And I do also remember just sort of thinking like, God, I don't remember ever like being that scared by a movie before.
Mhm.
And it's still a movie that I like. I mean, there's like other parts that, kind of stand out too. Like, I think it might even be the same part where like the tree comes in where he's got like the evil clown doll
Oh, dude.
in his
That's
room
the one
too.
for me.
Yeah.
The
So-
evil clown, all of a sudden, he like looks under the bed and it's not there and he pops up.
And then the part where that like monster comes out of the closet and it's this
Uh-huh.
big like glowing sort of like monster head. That's scary.
Yeah.
That movie literally feels like it was written to embed terrible memories into kids.
In children.
It really is.
exactly.
There's like a bunch of them.
And I mean, I can attest that this is a movie that you show clips of in your classes at Sarah Lawrence. I mean, I experienced it one time. I think it was part of a discussion about 80s Hollywood.
I talk about it in terms of like basically like Spielberg, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a Spielberg who wrote the movie, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of this idea of like the evil coming into the home, right?
Yeah.
In this like idyllic suburban environment and all
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I think it was that climactic scene with the face in the closet that we watched.
Yep.
Yeah.
The part that I think I usually show is the part where like she like goes through the closet to like rescue Carol Ann, and like the medium is like, tell her you're going to give her a spanking if she doesn't obey. And he's like, we don't spank her. And he's like, well, yeah. So,
Yeah. What is that famous
Very
quote
new
from
age
the movie?
parenting.
They're here.
Yep.
And that happens in that sequence too.
The TV people.
Yeah. I also remember that Medium has one of those lines when she finally rescues her and she's like, and your home is now safe or something like that.
Yes, it's
and you're
what
like,
does she say?
bullshit.
This house is clean.
There you go. And you're like, that is
It's
a
not.
bold-faced
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love that you incorporate it into your curriculum. That is,
Yeah, well, it definitely made an impression on me.
there we
Yeah,
go.
for sure.
Making an impression on other young minds.
I've actually never seen the full thing, but I from that experience,
Well, you should
that is,
watch that, and you should also watch Poltergeist 2, which is completely bonkers.
I've not
It's-
seen it.
I think it's, I don't think any of like the same people are really involved.
Oh, no.
'Cause
Okay.
This is a 3 too. I haven't seen
Oh,
Poltergeist
wow.
3.
Yeah. I mean, it was a
Um,
big hit. Poltergeist was
yeah.
a big hit, so I could understand. And it's, 80s, so they're
Yeah.
going to try to
Time
spin
to
it
Yeah,
milk
off.
it.
2 is just like, they were like,
Yeah.
you know what? Poltergeist 1 wasn't like weird and nuts enough. Try to make it, creepier and more bizarre.
And
Yeah.
by the time you
Cool.
saw that, you were discerning enough to like not have what is weird
I
in
saw that
movie.
pretty recently.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
a little bit like the with different sensibilities, the Gremlins to Gremlins 2 transition.
Ooh.
I could see Gremlins being one of those movies too that can scare a kid who's too young
I think
for
I went to
it.
see
I
Gremlins.
think Dougie had trouble with Gremlins
Yeah, no, some
too.
people do.
Or
There was
Gremlins,
this
the first one.
article, film critic, scholar Robin Wood, who's writing, a lot of his stuff is about the 80s and like writing this. And he has a pretty important article about horror film. And
Mhm.
there's one part where I can't remember like what the context is, but he refers to like the pervasively sick imagery of gremlins.
It's,
Wow.
I mean, it's from that era too. I remember when we talked ET, like a year ago or so, we talked about, Amblin and sort of the rollout of that,
Yeah.
and how Steven Spielberg had his hands on all of that it was, Joe Dante and Chris Columbus, and they were all Spielberg acolytes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Poltergeist and then Gremlins and Batteries Not Included, we're kind of trying to play with that childhood wonder. Right?
Right,
and,
right.
and go like, oh no, like maybe it doesn't all work out so great. Maybe your pet is
Yeah.
actually a monster.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I think that's kind of there in Spielberg, right? I mean, like, even if you watch like Close Encounters, right? I mean, there's the little kid who gets like abducted, and you don't know why, right? They just like come to his house, and the mother's like, "Oh my god, it's scary."
We
even though they end up being nice, you know, for some reason they didn't have any problem just like abducting this kid and terrifying him and his mother.
We just spoke about that actually on a different podcast. We all we talked Close Encounters,
and I think, you know, if I'm remembering correctly, originally what Spielberg was wanting to do with Hooper was a movie about evil aliens.
Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, well, let's do a haunted house instead.
Right. I'm remembering, since we're talking about this too, that one of my cousins actually had a too young experience with Poltergeist as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it's
not surprising. I mean, like, the whole fact that it's rated PG like sets this up.
Oh yeah.
Big that and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Oh yeah,
which was PG-13, right? Because they invented PG-13 for that movie.
I think they did it. I think they did it in response to that.
And Gremlins. Yeah, and Temple of Doom was a movie that I saw when I was young too, but I was pretty okay watching that.
No, but it is pretty gross, right?
It's gross.
It's gross, but it's fun.
I definitely, it wasn't lost on me that it was gross, but I think a crucial thing when you're watching movies young is that is a movie where the characters you are supposed to root for win.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's also, there's like a magnetic central character that I don't think Poltergeist has. Like,
no,
it's
you
the
can
family
latch onto
as
a
whole.
hero in
Exactly.
Indiana Jones.
Well, plus like Poltergeist, the ending is not an ending.
Yeah.
I mean, like the house just collapses into the ground.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, we thought we fixed things, but we can't really, probably ever.
Real estate nightmare.
Yeah.
So we did a call out on social media to ask you guys what were movies that scarred you when you were young. So we have a few responses there that we'd like to share with you.
Yeah, totally. Chris Ames official. Chris Ames, what's up, buddy? He said, Return to Oz. So many parts were creepy AF, but that scene where Mombi takes off her head totally freaked me out. Have you guys seen this moment, by the way?
Yeah, so this was a movie that a friend of mine at a house when we were kids, like her family was watching it, like her older sisters. And so I walked in just in parts of it and it scared the shit out of me.
Oh my God. It's like a whole row of heads. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
This is like a really messed up moment.
Yeah, I still have to see that movie.
Cool.
But then Janie Willison Creatives says, OMG, that scene from The Great Mouse Detective was the most horrifying moment of my childhood. Also haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, this is a reference, I think, to the fact that I stated this. This was a scene that messed me up as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You can see this on the video that I posted on our socials. This is the reveal that Fidget, who's the henchman for Radigan, is disguising himself as a baby in a crib.
Mm-hmm.
You know about this scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, Madeline is concurring.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah Delap U says, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the scene with Large Marge scared me so badly it made me vomit. And I feel that for real. I love Pee-wee and I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but Large Marge is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Another movie I still have to see, but I've heard about this one before being one that some kids have a hard time with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the way her face changes.
Yeah. It's like it's what body horror like for kids is, I think.
It makes me think a little bit, to go into animation for a second, of like Yubaba in Spirited Away. That, some pretty freaky things happen with her.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I have an extreme 123 says, call me crazy, but Escape from Alcatraz, because those dummy heads are kind of scary looking. Have you guys seen this movie?
I actually haven't. I don't think. I think I've seen parts of it.
So
as a kid,
I wrote back 100%. I understand what's going on with this because yes, the characters in that movie, in order to not draw attention to the fact that they are leaving their bunks, make these paper mache heads and stick them in the beds. And there's something really creepy about them because they're trying to make them look realistic with the very few resources that they have. I'm with you. I have an extreme 123. There's something about how they're framed that just a little unsettling.
Then moving over to TikTok, some responses that we got to our video. So this is just the name of this handle, Truth. And at Belinda Whiteman agree that American Werewolf in London was pretty horrifying. And then nbricks789 added, the part that freaked me out in American Werewolf was when he was talking to his dead friend in the movie theater.
Definitely a weird scene.
Yeah. Yet another movie I haven't seen, although is is this movie that movie's rated R, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Hard R for the time. Yeah.
Seems like a movie that a lot of people get exposed to a little too early.
Yeah. This was both the first nude scene and one of the first truly unsettling things I'd ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
And they happen about 10 minutes apart.
Don't give you any time to.
No, they really don't. Yeah, they
Yeah.
really don't. No, but I'm with nbricks789 that there's something freaky about how the friend character in that movie is decaying.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the latest and last stage of the decay. And it's like part skeleton, part slopped off
Yeah. Yeah, flesh.
skin, flesh. Yeah. And so it's weird. It's super weird. And it's also one of those like weird things because it's happening in a porno theater.
Yeah.
And so there's this
Yeah.
like weird discomfort of like the sounds that you're hearing versus what you're
The
seeing. And then
images, yeah.
there are like freshly dead people who are also sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
And they are also costumed and made up to be like disgusting. So
Yeah.
weird scene.
Totally. Jessica says The Ring, couldn't sleep near a TV. I haven't seen The Ring because I went to a sleepover when I was like 10 and all the girls wanted to put on The Ring. And I was like, I'm not allowed to watch PG-13 movies. And then I just never had another opportunity to see The Ring.
I saw that movie in theaters and notable theater experience. It was pretty creepy.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when that movie came out, all the kids at school were like, that's the scariest shit that
Yeah.
you're ever going to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Yet
I'm with
another
you.
one I haven't seen.
There we go. A
Yeah.
lot of things to put on your watch list. Julian.
Yeah.
To retroactively mess you
Yeah,
up.
the don't watch too young list.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
At Twin Sunset just said arachnophobia. Hell yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Arachnophobia is extraordinarily effective at being creepy with the simplest little practical effects. Hard agree. And it's a PG-13 movie that could kind of be an early 80s PG
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So I think this one falls in that category of almost kind of like Poltergeist.
Yeah, like kids maybe saw it too young because no one realized it was going to be as scary as it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
But and yet another movie I haven't seen, unlike the next one on our list, which is that at SMKJL5 says The Wizard of Oz.
Mhm.
The flying monkeys, the feet under the house shriveling up. Yikes.
Yeah, I said that
Yeah.
on Down the Yellow Brick Pod that the flying monkeys were scary.
Yeah, they're freaky,
Mhm.
maybe even more than the Wicked Witch of the West. And yeah, I mean, I, like many people, saw The Wizard of Oz as a kid. I was probably like around 4 years old when I saw it. And there's definitely things that can scare a kid there. But I think that, like with some other movies that strike this balance, I think that the positive things, the hero's journey elements of it, were the more affecting thing for me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, Tim Export says Watership Down, which
Yeah.
I've never seen.
Watership Down is one of those animated movies that I saw this movie in film school. And the rabbits and the rats are all drawn to be snaggletooth
Yeah.
and really aggressive. And Watership Down is like an allegory about like war and the humanity that's lost or animalhood that's lost.
Yeah.
This is not, a light animated film. This is an adult animated film.
Yeah.
So I get it. Yeah.
Yet another one I haven't seen.
Yeah. I love this handle, by the way. At The Long Kiss Good Morning says Terror Vision. You guys know about Terror Vision?
I've never even heard of
No.
Terror Vision.
Y'all just need to check out the trailer for this, and
Will
you would
do.
understand Terror Vision would absolutely screw up a kid.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
There we go. Yep.
Peachy Baby 05 says the movies that freaked them out as a kid were Halloween and The Neverending Story.
Yeah.
Now,
I get
one of
that.
those I have seen. That's Halloween. Yeah, I mean, not a kid's movie. Definitely understandable that would freak a kid out. Neverending Story I have not seen, although I feel like I have heard it brought up as part of a similar category to maybe things like Return to Oz. Or I don't see this on our list so far, but The Dark Crystal.
Yes. Yeah.
That
That's
comes
very
up a
much so.
lot. Not necessarily animated, but movies that have like a special effects element in them that are kind of marketed towards kids, but still a little bit beyond the sensibility that is typically considered kid friendly.
Right. A little uncanny. some of the stuff
That's a
happening
great
there.
word for it. Yeah.
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 Speaking of Return to Oz, Swiss cheese includes that amongst their films, but also adds Watcher in the Woods, which is not a movie that I was really familiar with. You guys know that one?
Same. Never heard of it.
Well, sorry, Swiss cheese. That's about all we have to say about that.
And La La Lauren says The Fly disturbed me so much, which yes, because we go to that, all the Cronenberg stuff has so much body horror, and there's like body horror for kids, as we talked about, and then there's just like body horror that would freak out adults, and I'm sure it would freak out children as well.
Oh, yeah, big time. Yeah, visually in a vacuum, that stuff looks really freaky, but I think there's the added layer of like the romance gone wrong and this character that flew too high towards the sun receiving this cosmic punishment. Yeah, it's tough, man. The Fly's a very affecting movie. So totally. Yeah, I'm with this person,
which I have seen.
Yeah,
yeah. Cameron Allen says Stephen King's The Langoliers. I've heard of this movie. I don't know very much about it.
It was a book, I think, first. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume Stephen King.
Yeah, although he's like produced stuff for TV. I should.
It takes place on an airplane. I know that much.
Yeah. And I think this was like a made-for-TV series. Mm-hmm. Again, too, just kind of removing the barrier of entry, I think, for this type of thing.
Yeah.
Just turn on the TV and there's some weird stuff happening on those channels. So Cameron Allen, it makes sense that could be something that you see early and kind of mess you up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. It says it was on ABC. So yeah, it's accessible.
Mm-hmm. And to bring this home, I have to shout out my cousin. Joseph, I see that you responded to us under the handle Heyoka Unleashed. It says, Chucky in the back seat of Child's Play, the flashback experiments in Secret of Nim, the spider crawl in The Exorcist, just to name a few.
Yeah.
Child's Play was a big one for me. I didn't even see this movie, and I was just scared shitless of the idea of a doll coming to life wanting to kill me.
Yeah, so, I've never seen any of the Child's Play Chucky movies.
Same.
Yeah. The backseat scene, I can understand. He's kind of trying to stab someone from underneath the seat.
Oh, so, I can visualize this. I've seen this clip.
And so like if you're just sitting in the car and you're like, is Chucky under there going to try to stab me? Totally makes sense. Yeah. Have you guys seen Secret of Nim?
No.
Not really that's super familiar with that.
Yeah, but that's another one where it's like the experiments that are done on these animals mess them up and they kind of start spinning and spiraling.
Oh, right. Yeah, that would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah. But we all have seen The Exorcist. Only as of 2 years ago. I think it's the same for you, Madeline.
Yeah, around then.
Yeah, because we both saw it at the IFC Center during the William Friedkin retrospective.
Yes, that is true.
But I saw it in college, but that was a long time ago.
But notably, that is a movie that I somewhat consciously waited to watch for a long time because of it having content that, even from a surface level, I knew resembled that of my trauma movie, which we'll get into talking about in a little while.
Yep. There we go. Well, thank you all so much for answering the bat signal and telling us about these movies that messed you up when you were kids. I hope we have a chance to do something like this again in the future with a different prompt, but it was fun getting to read all those responses and kind of fun now, I think, to just chime in.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see the trends amongst these two.
Yeah. Totally.
Hello, Sleepless Cinematic Pod. MK here from Down the Yellow Brick Pod, and I am so honored and stoked to be a small addition to this traumatizing movies episode, as honestly I have so many from my childhood because I was a great big scaredy cat. I grew up with my older brother who's about 4.5 years older than me, so his taste in movies was very different from mine. I was into Disney, into musicals, anything with like singing fluffy animals. He was definitely more into Ninja Turtles, Jurassic Park, and the movie that I'm going to talk about today, E.T. Now, I would like to say that nowadays I'm a huge E.T. fan, huge Jurassic Park fan, huge Ninja Turtle fan even, but as a kid, and maybe it's because my brother loved those things, I just thought, that's not for me, that's his thing, I don't see how I can get into that, and I just was freaked out. And I think, honestly, E.T. was a huge fear of mine for a while, honestly until probably my mid-20s when I finally watched it as an adult with one of my best friends, and I realized what I was missing out on. I realized that this is an incredible film with a lovable, sweet, multiple main characters who just steal your heart. And E.T. himself is just so, so special. So I'm very, very happy to say I'm no longer traumatized, but I was just watching some clips on YouTube to remind myself of some of these moments that traumatized me as a kid. And I still felt a little bit of that fear rise up in me. I think it will just always be with me, but E.T. was definitely the movie that scarred me when I was young. So overall, I think E.T. was a perfect movie to cause me trauma because I was really intrigued by the idea of aliens and extraterrestrials, but they also really freaked me out. It was one of those weird dichotomous situations where I thought aliens were cool and I liked hearing and learning about them, but I was also very terrified of ever meeting one or the reality that they could actually exist. And E.T. is that. So I think just even the premise freaked me out. I also think I was really freaked out by gremlins as a kid. I mean, we're talking about all the freaky animal creature 80s movies that I now love. Those were my nightmare fuel as a kid. So I think there was something about E.T.'s design and look and physicality that maybe I somehow just threw into the bucket of Gremlins, which was another movie that my brother loved and honestly lovingly liked to terrorize me with these films. We're best friends now, but honestly, I'm shocked our friendship overcame these traumas. But there are two specific scenes that stick out to me that I just rewatched upon thinking about E.T. And the first one is the little quick shot of E.T. in the closet hiding among the stuffed animals. The camera just like slowly pans from all of these cute little stuffies. And then there's E.T.'s head with his very large eyes, just minding his own business. I was really, really freaked out by monsters under the bed, by creatures in my closet, and I think that just sent me. The fact that something could be hiding in plain sight amongst my stuffed animals. Are you kidding me? I get chills thinking about it. And of course, what is now such an iconic moment, and that I think is such a slay, the drag of it all, E.T. in drag when they're trying to disguise him and he's got like the little hat and the blonde hair. Oh my gosh, it's everything. And his very, very long arms that feel very disproportionate to his body length are sticking out. He's got those long, long fingers, bony fingers with the rings on. The iconic phone home scene. There was something about that visual. I was like, okay, first you're showing me an alien, and now you're showing me an alien in drag, and I don't even know what drag is as a kid. What am I looking at? It was just too much for my brain to process. And I think as a kid, my reaction was to feel fear and trauma at that. Whereas now, I'm like, fierce, get it, E.T., you look great. I love it. And I love that that has even become a viral moment on RuPaul's Drag Race. Go check that out. That's pretty awesome. So all this to say, my relationship with the film now, as I was sharing, I think there will always be a slight little inner child moment that I have where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're watching E.T. I'm scared. This is taking me back. It honestly isn't my go-to for like a comfort film, but I do recognize that E.T. is one of the greatest films of all time. It's timeless. It's unconditional love. It's finding family. It's recognizing that even though you look and are different from someone else or are from different places, there are still so many things that connect us. And being someone who hosts a Wizard of Oz podcast, I have to say E.T. is Dorothy. He is in another place, and Elliot and all of these characters are the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and all of these people who look so different to him, and he's just trying to get home. And so honestly, it is Wizard of Oz. So I have to give it its flowers. And E.T. definitely holds a special place in my heart now. So this was so much fun to revisit. Thank you for providing me a space to air out my childhood trauma that has now become a beloved chestnut of a film. Thanks, Sleepless.
Emilio, how about you?
So the one that I'm going to talk about here that's probably definitely on the Mount Rushmore, if not is at the pinnacle of this descriptor of film, is a movie called 8mm. It came out in 1999. A little bit of setup here. The year before, 1998, there's a movie that comes out that summer, huge blockbuster called Armageddon.
Yes.
You guys familiar with Armageddon?
Of course.
Yes.
I saw this movie in the theaters with my cousins, my older cousins. I'm the youngest of all these cousins. This movie blew my hair back. I was like, whoa, this is cinema. There are edits like every 1.8 seconds or whatever in this movie. It absolutely like fried my brain in this way that I was like, this is incredible. And I was like, who makes these movies? Like, I want to see more of these movies. And I find out that this is a Jerry Bruckheimer production.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking back and I see there's Con Air. There is The Rock. And I'm trying to see what the thread is between all these movies. And that thread is Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
So the next movie that comes out of his has got to be cool. The next movie that I think came out that had him in it, after I kind of made this realization, was this movie called 8mm, and it is a Jerry Bruckheimer production.
So you're like, this is for me.
So
I'm
like,
gonna love this.
yes. And so now I'm primed, and I'm asking my parents, I'm like, this movie seems really cool and like kind of neat, and I know it's rated R, but like, is there any way I can watch it? And my parents were like, all right, fine. And we took this movie home, and this movie is absolutely depraved. It is about a private detective who is called by the widow of a really wealthy man who just recently passed away. And she finds a videotape in like a vault or a safe in their home. And it appears to be a snuff film. And she's so bothered by this movie that she hires the private detective to figure out if this is real, and if it is, what they can do about it. And so Nicolas Cage is his private detective, and it is a descent into hell kind of movie where he goes and he tries to get to the bottom of this video. And I'm not going to spoil everything about it, but I'll just say like this movie is like really nihilistic. It has a couple scenes that absolutely just like burned in my brain as being like disgusting and weird. I was thinking about this movie for like months after I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say that I went back to this movie probably in my mid-20s because, again, it stayed with me for that long.
Yeah.
And it just sat in my brain as this like insanely dark, horrible movie full of imagery that I couldn't shake. And I was like, this movie can't be that bad. It just has to be the fact that I was like 11 and or 12, and I was like just old enough to understand what's happening, but not old enough to like process the kind of depravity that this movie just is living in.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is still really fucked up if you see it as a 20 or 30 or whatever year old. This movie is got to be one of the darkest, weirdest movies that has been released by a producer like Jerry Bruckheimer. That is like high octane, thrill, action movie producer. And the only thing I'll say that's kind of like a weird silver lining on this movie is that I don't want to say it scared me straight, but I think this movie put rather early in my mind this idea that the world of pornography was not a place for young kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was a chance that I would see something really scarring if I watched pornography. I worked at a video store for the better part of 3 years where I rented pornography to people all the time. I came into that job being like, pornography is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as I kept working that job, I came to realize actually that a lot of good people in the world rented pornography, and that it didn't necessarily mean that
you a bad person.
It doesn't make you a bad person. But I think it set me off on just, I think, maybe the right note to not engage with any of that until I was an older person and I think could understand the more uncomfortable dynamics of like what is behind that world enough to make better decisions and also to like frame it in the right way. But that's it. That's the only silver lining I've got. Like 8mm is a dark as fuck film. That's where I stand.
I imagine that shaped your first viewing of Boogie Nights.
You know, I think I saw Boogie Nights for the first time when I was a little older. I think I was probably 17 or 18. Yeah. And I think by that time I had more of an appetite for like the cinephile thing.
Yeah.
So I knew
it's supposed to be really good.
It's supposed to be really good. And that I was watching it more for like the way it felt like Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And the way that PTA was kind of starting to assert himself as like one of the dudes.
Yeah.
And so, but no, 8 millimeter.
This also makes me think of Videodrome.
A little bit. Yeah.
Just in the sense of like this kind of underground, like, organization creating these depraved videos.
Dude, the scenes that they show in Videodrome
are also really fucked up.
Really messed up. And I'll say to you that 8 millimeter, I think, kind of has this spiritual cousin, which is the movie Hardcore.
Oh, the Paul Schrader film. I have seen that.
Yeah. This movie is taking it just so much further.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not that this person has chosen a thing to do in their life that offends some part of somebody. It's like, no, this person may or may not be dead.
Yeah.
And that this was filmed for someone's enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, too, is just like an unbelievably like messed up thing to make a movie about.
Yeah. Well, I see too that it's directed by Joel Schumacher and it's written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who was the screenwriter of Seven.
Yes, exactly.
But that's a movie that is known for being, like, at the time was considered kind of depraved too.
Yeah.
But I think is, for better or worse, been dulled by time.
Yeah. I think also, that movie has the cachet of being Fincher's kind of first real, this is my style.
Yeah.
This is my thing. And it's got great performances by Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. And
Paltrow.
And the reveal of the killer is like really effective in that movie. I think this movie was working off the vapor trails of something like that.
Yeah, and taking a few more liberties stylistically, perhaps, that didn't maybe land.
Yeah. And it's not a terrible film. There are some like good things about it. This is a pretty formative performance for Joaquin Phoenix. He plays the private detectives in to help him kind of get into the world of pornography, and he's quite good in the movie.
It's like a little after Gladiator.
It's right before.
Okay.
Which is really his like.
Yeah, that's his breakout.
Yeah, it's his big breakout.
This is close in time to David Lynch's Lost Highway too, which has some similar aesthetic details to it. So it's like, what is it with the late 90s and like, neo-noirs and like about pornography and stuff?
Yeah. The little button I'll put on this is that the very next year, the next Nicolas Cage Bruckheimer film was the one that I should have seen, which is Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys seen that movie?
I haven't.
No.
It is a really fun movie, and that's the movie that I wanted to see and not 8 millimeter.
So you're like Armageddon, Gone in 60 Seconds, these two hard recommendations.
Yeah, fun. They're fun.
You can skip what's in the middle.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's like, a sandwich where the bread is great and the protein is not.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
So, Lily, do you have a story of a film or TV show that you watched when you were too young and not ready to watch it?
Yes. When I was growing up, I was very lucky to have a tiny TV in my bedroom. It did not hook up to cable, though, or at least that's what my parents told me. And I found out one night that it actually did. I think I was 9 or 10, pretty young. And I decided to put the cable, like Ethernet cable, into the TV and go to Cartoon Network, my favorite channel.
Nice.
But this was after I was supposed to be in bed.
It's late at night. Cartoon Network changes.
After hours, baby.
And that's when I discovered Adult Swim. And the TV turned on, and it was in the middle of an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho, the anime. And there was some green goblin muscle man who was yelling and fighting other people. And I flipped my lid and ran out and immediately confessed to my parents what I did.
Well, you were a very good kid to do that. I feel like most other kids would just like turn off the TV and be like, well, wait a minute. I just found out that there's cable on here.
Yeah, no, I was too scared. I couldn't cope on my own.
You had the wherewithal, though, to know when to stop, which is great.
Yeah. But that behavior actually with anime continued. I actually started loving Adult Swim. And when I was like 13, 12, something like that, I got into Inuyasha, which was also on Adult Swim. But this was now in the times where you could start recording things on your cable box and then watch them later. Like Charter. I think I forgot what the name of the company was.
TiVo or that type of thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And in Inuyasha, there's lots of boobs.
Mhm.
There's lots of boobs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nudity. There's a lot of cussing. There's a lot of violence. And I was sort of freaked out by that. But also, like just the outline, no specific anatomy. So it wasn't really traumatizing. It was just very like, oh, this is a Barbie doll. Like,
Right.
why are there Barbie dolls running around in feudal Japan? Okay.
What's the name of the series again? Sorry.
Inuyasha.
Inuyasha, yeah.
And you said you've maintained this love for anime from that point on.
Deeply, yes. Like, I loved animation always for my entire life. And what anime did for me, it brought in a lot of adult topics very early on.
Nice.
And so I continue to be fascinated with it and with mangas and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's fun. And also just like the speed of the animation and the quality of it is so different from a lot of American studios.
Right.
So that's also what drew me to it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So that incident didn't turn you off of anime.
Luckily.
Yeah.
No. It was sort of like the big scare that makes you more curious.
Mm.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
So, Idris, we would love if you could share with us something that you saw when you were way, way too young to process it. Do you have something like that?
Oh, I have so many things like that. I mean, I had no business watching Taxi Driver at the age that I watched it. I was like a teenager. I was just like, my eyes were just bugged out. I mean, I remember watching a lot of Dirty Harry movies with my family as a kid.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was just on. And like, there was like, I mean, Michael Jackson's Thriller kind of scarred me.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think the scary part of that video is the beginning, though. It's like before the music comes in.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
it just feels like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That's-
yeah.
That's actually tied in some ways to a film that it kind of qualifies for me, which is American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Baker and John Landis were the ones who did all the work for the Thriller video too.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
And I think it was because of American Werewolf in London.
Exactly.
I think MJ saw that and was like, I want to turn into a werewolf.
Yeah, I think so. So is there one in particular amongst these that kind of reigns supreme?
I mean, really, this is gonna sound goofy, but like, I'm gonna stick with Thriller because I was
that's great.
Yeah.
I was really, really young when that music video came out, and MJ was such a huge star, and so I think everyone just thought it was like, yeah, it's pop, you know,
It's a
just
music
like,
video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
How
a
bad
different,
can it
different
be?
era, man. It was a different era. But yeah, that one was terrifying. And that was the point. And I can say that kids love to be terrified as well, but it's pretty intense. Like, I still remember how scared I got when he turns around with his crazy eyes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and starts transforming and stuff. And then when the dancing zombies show up and the close-ups on them, you know, there's these close-ups on there. They were pulling no punches, man. And then even just like the way it's lit, this is not like Hotel Transylvania, like
Yeah.
silly, like we're gonna soften the edges. It was like, no, we're messing you up. We're messing you up. Yeah, like yeah, you're gonna have nightmares.
What relationship do you have with the Thriller video now?
Oh, it's first of all, it's on the holiday mix every year.
Sweet.
I've started DJing my son's Halloween dances at his middle school.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got booked again. I wasn't my best last year, but I'm redeeming myself. I just wrote the dean of the school. I was like, "Hey, man, am I coming back again?" You know. So yeah, it's a classic. It's ubiquitous, and so now as an adult, of course, it's just a part of my life, part of my DNA. Sometimes I like to bust some of those dance moves out that they do, but real stuff. I mean, it still is pretty scary, yo. Like, if I'm home by myself and it's like a rainy night, I don't know that I'm gonna watch that by myself.
Yeah.
I know. But sometimes those core frightening moments,
They're very affecting.
They really are. They don't really leave you. There's a part of you
Yeah.
that always remembers like how freaked out you were the first time you saw it. So that's awesome.
Yes,
though.
indeed.
Yeah.
And
that kind of makes me think too of like, speaking of music videos from around that time, the video for Queen and David Bowie's Under Pressure.
Yeah.
It's different. It's not like a choreographed thing. It's more like a lot of clips from classic horror movies mixed with like news footage or like
Yeah.
images of explosions and stuff like that.
Mm.
But there's, you know, I think there's like images of like Max Schreck as Nosferatu and things like that in there. And so it's less like in a distinct to the video sense, but it's like a good compilation of a lot of like classic scary images.
Yeah, that's a good point. Has your son seen Thriller, or any of your kids seen Thriller, the
I
video?
don't think so, but yeah, I think that's going to change. Actually, you know what I was
This is
thinking?
the year.
And this is the kind of parent I am. Julian, when you were just talking about Max Schreck appearing in the Under Pressure video, I immediately thought of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, and I'm like, I'm going to show that to my son.
How old is your son?
13.
Like, depending on his sensibilities, probably an okay age to see that movie.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
wreck him though. He's a sweet kid, and that movie's terrifying. But I just want to do it to him because that's the kind of adult I am.
Well, you know what? I feel like part of the reason why we're doing this is having that. Whoa, we saw something way too young. It's a part of being a consumer of media as a kid,
Yeah.
which we all are. And it's like a rite of passage to see something that you are just not ready for, and that it stay with you, and that later in life, it's still hanging around somewhere in your head, living rent free. You know, I'm sure with you being around for him, there'll be the opportunity to like discuss what's going on, and you can always put on your like professor hat and be like, well, you know, there's a lot of ways you can look at this, you know, and soften some of the edges, as you say.
I mean, we have to mirror the real life horrors.
All right, Sean, could you share with us a film that you first saw when you were way too young to process it?
There's so many movies that I saw, like, I think way too early before it was like age appropriate to see. And I don't know if it was like really like a tough time processing it, but there's some like kind of gnarly stuff. So I'd throw Welcome to the Dollhouse and Clerks in there.
Oh, yeah.
I saw both of those when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
And to be honest, seeing those two movies was my introduction to independent film.
Sure.
And
yeah.
the fact that a filmmaker from New Jersey could make a movie, and like my love of Clerks then was because of the super foul language.
Oh, totally.
And Welcome to the Dollhouse was just kind of like a, whoa, this is like a wild movie.
Well, that's such an interesting movie, I think, to see at that age, because the characters are
that age.
Yeah, they are that age. It's not appropriate for kids that age, but those are the characters you're following.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's always kind of an interesting thing, right? Like, the kids are the age that you might be, but it's not appropriate for you to watch it, even if it's a reflection of what might really be happening in middle school and in your life.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
But
of
I think
the movie.
one that would best maybe fit this question, I saw Faces of Death when I was like 13.
Oh,
Have you guys seen that, or are you familiar with it?
Oh, dude, absolutely.
Loosely.
I worked in a video store that rented like all four. I'm sure there are more, but there were 4 Faces of Death
Yeah.
that we used to rent, and it was like the boogeyman sitting the box in the horror section, and I saw multiple kids go up to it and be like, am I gonna see what's behind the box? Like
it entices you. Like, it makes
does.
you so curious with the premise of these are real filmed things. And my friend's dad had it, and we were like, oh man, we gotta watch this. You know, because like you said, you'd see it at the video store, like in between the horror section and the adult video section, where they would also
bridge.
like in the same section where Faces of Death would be like Fritz the Cat and Heavy Metal and then Faces of Death. And so then when we watched it, it was kind of like, I don't know if like there's two scenes that really stand out in my head. And I remember us just wondering like whether it was real or whether it wasn't. So like already it kind of planted the idea of like, okay, what we're seeing may not actually be true. And I think most of it is not true, thank God. But Faces of Death. I don't know if like I felt too young to process it, but I did watch that at an early age. Yeah.
Dude, that is gnarly though. Like
Yeah.
that's a wild one.
Yeah.
Just from like a
I'm like
content
very
standpoint.
happy that I turned out semi-normal.
Yeah.
I know.
I haven't seen this. I don't know if anyone else here has, but the Blair Witch Project is often really considered like the touchstone of the genre, like the movie that kind of codified the found footage film, but it's not objectively the first. I
Oh
think
yeah, definitely not.
I would have to look it up to be sure, but I think that the movie that is sometimes considered the first is another movie that has that kind of controversy around it, which is Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there
I
are
didn't
some
even
other
consider that one.
Yeah.
I think there's some other films that ride the line a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the concept of finding the footage of people who have disappeared or are presumed dead, I think that started with Cannibal Holocaust.
There's this other one. My friend just told me about it called the McPherson tapes. Have you guys heard of this?
Only in
It's
name.
from the 80s and it's like alien invasion. We watched the trailer for it. We were considering watching it the other night. Yeah, very much feels like in the mold more of like Blair Witch Project than Cannibal Holocaust. And also it was shot on video, like with Cannibal Holocaust, still shot on film. So it kind of has like a different feel to it. But the minute you switch to video, that's when found footage, I think, like really transforms into the genre that we know it to be now.
Yeah.
I like that. Let me ask you this. What kind of relationship do you have with Faces of Death now? Is that something that like you pop in every so often and watch? Have you made peace with it or not?
You know, I think the only relationship I have with it now is that like it's kind of cool that I saw it when I was 13. Like,
you wear it as a badge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a fun fact of like a fucked up movie that I saw at an early age. And the covers look so cool.
They are. It's metal as fuck, you know?
Maybe that's why it was next to heavy metal at the video store.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of the things that did link them, I guess, visually.
I listened to a lot of metal as a teenager, and I remember reading this oral history of the genre at the time that was called Louder Than Hell.
Yep.
You know that book?
Yeah, I know that book.
Yeah, it's a good book. Pretty comprehensive history of all the major subgenres of metal that existed to
That's
that
cool.
point.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, it's like I want to say like a little more than 10 years old. There was some chapter in it. I want to say it was the chapter about death metal when there was some account. Maybe it was like Chuck Schuldiner of the band Death or someone of that vein who had talked about seeking out the movie Faces of Death as a teenager. And that like a lot of people in metal bands wanted to watch that movie, I think, for exactly the reason that you're describing, like to have it as a badge of like, we watched this.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us more metal. Yeah.
Right, totally.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's wild though. I know what you mean about the like, I saw this, and as you said, Madeline, it's kind of like a badge. I saw that. I made it through.
I made it through. All I got was this t-shirt.
I do feel like I was kind of on a therapist couch there for a sec, letting all that off.
Well, you're not alone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean,
Yeah.
Julian, I'm really excited to hear you kind of set up yours because I think this entire conversation was kind of your idea.
Yes, I made the push here. Quickly before I do that, I mean, Madeline, you shared Dougie's story, and I think that another story that like I want to share from a family member that kind of adds a dimension to all of this is something that happened to my dad when he was just a kid. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I feel like it reveals a circumstance that often precedes things like this. Now, this is very much of a different time, but my dad was a kid in the 60s, and one time he and his brother were sent to the local movie theater. They grew up in Queens. I don't know what theater it was. They were sent to the local movie theater to see Yellow Submarine. Harmless movie for them. My dad was like 7 or 8 when this happened. But I think they assumed they were being picked up, and their mom, my grandma, didn't come right away. So they just sat in the theater. They just waited. And then the next film that came on, suddenly there's this image of like Faye Dunaway looking out a window. There's this guy standing outside a car. And
maybe named Bonnie and
it was Bonnie and Clyde. And I don't think they got too deep enough into the movie to be scarred by anything. But what did happen, and this is very indicative of the time, is that a matron came into the theater and grabbed them and escorted them out.
Amazing.
And then,
wow.
There was their mom, my grandma, just, like waiting to pick them up in the lobby, I think, a little distraught at what had happened. And,
that is awesome.
Yeah. But that kind of thing is, that's a circumstance that explains a lot of these experiences where, maybe there is like some kind of an assumption that, a kid is being looked after when they're not. Or, that like an assumption that one thing is going on and something else is going on in terms of what a kid is watching. And I think that sets the stage nicely for me to tell my story, this was a truly scarring experience. I've told you both this before, but I'll say it for the listeners now, that the movie that I saw too young was scarring enough that I can't even say the name of it. This is a tic I know that like a lot of people have about traumatizing things, but I can tell you a lot of things about this movie. I'm about to, but I'll set it up with some details that reveal what it is and ask one of you to chime in here. This movie, it's a famous horror movie that was released in 1981. The debut feature of director Sam Raimi, stars Bruce Campbell, and it is called
The Evil Dead.
Yes, that's the movie. Thank you, Madeline. I saw this movie, to be totally accurate, I was forced to watch part of this movie when I was 7 years old.
Jeez.
Anyone who knows even a little bit about that movie and hears that age, you can probably already feel, you're probably already squirming hearing that. And the circumstance behind this was, it really was one thing leads to another kind of experience. I was at the dentist's office with my mom. That's not where I saw the movie.
The scariest place.
What kind of dentist shows that movie?
Yeah, in the waiting room.
The one from Little Shop of Horrors.
That's a good plan. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I was at the dentist's office and then with my mom, and then we ran into a coworker of hers, a friend from work who was there with her son too, who was, I believe, about 13 at the time. So we ran into them and, it starts off totally innocuous. It was just my mom is talking with her friend. We're walking out together. And then, so like her 13-year-old son is talking to me a bit and, he's coming off friendly at first and, just seems like a, kid who wants to talk. And it's, he gradually makes it clear that he's pretty obsessed with this movie. My code word for it, because of my difficulty with the title, is going to be Sam Raimi's debut.
Cool.
Yeah,
Great.
so that's my noun for
Mm-hmm.
it. So it becomes pretty clear that he's obsessed with this movie, and I'm 7 years old. I've never heard of it before. Not even the slightest idea what it's like, what it's about. And so then, like conversation keeps on going, and then we go off to their house to get lunch or something. And so then after a while, like my mom and her work friend, they're just, talking, they're just catching up, and I am sent off with my mom's friend's son, and he has like this TV room, and I think what his mom told him to do, because she was wise and knew that I shouldn't see this movie, was she told him to go put on Spy Kids or something like that.
Hell yeah.
Which also really freaked me out.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's got some weird
continue.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had seen that movie at that age and it was fine.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I had seen a bunch of movies at that age that maybe other kids can't handle, and I was fine. That same year, I had seen Jurassic Park and the first two Indiana Jones movies for the first time. And not only was I fine, I loved them.
Temple of Doom's got some weird stuff.
Temple of Doom does have some weird stuff, and I was a little freaked out by it, but redeemed by the fact that, spoiler alert for the Temple of Doom, the characters that you are rooting for win in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think makes a huge difference for kids.
Sure.
I would say that's the kind of the same with me and 8mm. There's
Yeah.
like a nihilistic streak in that movie that just like, it is depressing.
Mhm.
And there's like a message in that movie about like the ugliness of humanity
Mhm.
that is hard when you're a kid.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I mean, this is much lighter, but I will argue that the thing that freaked me out about this scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit is that this tune is dead.
Right.
Yeah,
like
totally.
that one will not make it out of this.
Right. Good point.
It's the darkness that comes into these otherwise lighter things. And, just like to give just a tiny bit more context, I mean, the formative franchise of my childhood was Star Wars. So, I mean, like the whole Joseph Campbell hero's journey was already very much in my head at that point. That was my idea of what a movie was supposed to be. So then, I'm sent off with this kid and, he gets this instruction, but he's like, he didn't literally say this, but basically just said, fuck it.
Yeah,
and,
screw that.
Yeah, and decided to put on Sam Raimi's debut, his favorite movie at the time. It was clear that he was obsessed with this movie, and it became clear that he did not have any sense of the damage that a movie like that could cause to someone watching it prematurely. But I think on some level, I mean, he knew he was doing the wrong thing because he had been instructed otherwise. But I don't know that he was, intending to inflict malice. I think that he was so obsessed with the movie that he couldn't resist the urge to watch it.
Right. And 13 is like young for that movie too.
It is. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
actually, I was just telling my mom the other day that we were going to do this episode, and she hasn't seen this movie. She's not like a fan of Sam Raimi or anything, but just knowing that, gruesome horror movie, it's like 13 is too young for that. She said that.
Big time.
And so then one thing leads to another, and he puts on the movie. And notably, I didn't really react to the experience as it was happening. I really didn't know what I was getting into. I wasn't like begging him to shut it off or anything like that. I was more just kind of like, okay, I guess this is going on. And if memory serves me correctly, that movie takes a little while to ramp up, but once it gets going, it's very 0 to 60.
It like never stops.
It never stops. And luckily I didn't see the whole thing, which talking about silver linings in this experience, that really is one. This is a movie. It's got a simple, easy to explain premise. 5 young adults rent a cabin in the woods, and they discover this tape in the basement that contains incantations that release spirits of the undead that possess people's flesh.
It's a tape and not a book?
It's both.
It's both, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
Well, that's where I'm glad to have a bit of a hazier memory about this.
But all good.
So yeah, I'm watching this, and it's like, first, it's not that scary, but I know what the title is, and I sort of think, well, this is going to get scary eventually, isn't it? It sure does.
Evil's in the title.
Right.
And dead.
Right. And some things happen, and then, if memory serves me correctly, the first major act of violence in the movie is also one of the most controversial scenes in the movie.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And this was something that, I didn't have much concept of as a kid, but in hindsight, learning more about what was going on in this movie as an adult, it made me absolutely furious that I was forced to watch this.
Yeah.
For those wondering, whether you've seen the movie or not, the scene I'm referring to is an infamous scene that depicts a sexual assault involving animated tree branches.
Yeah.
And that was something, I had no idea what I was watching there. It was clear to me that it was meant to be scary, but I didn't, a kid doesn't know what a sexual assault is, hopefully doesn't. And I'm going to draw a parallel here to a story told by the great Mark Maron, that the movie he watched when he was too young was Deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a one for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. He was taken, I think, by his grandparents to see it in a theater when he was about 9 years old. And that movie really rattled him. I think his grandparents did not know what any of them were getting into. The parallel here is that during that movie's infamous squeal like a pig scene, he didn't really know what was going on there either. It was kind of like the horror of that did not affect him as a kid. It was more like the other acts of violence in that movie that did. And I didn't have a concept of what was going on, but sadly, I can't say as much about the kid that showed it to me. Now, I don't think he understood that what he was being depicted there was a sexual assault, but what I remember him saying was something to the effect of, "See, this movie's funny. You can see her butt." Something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
it sounds like a 13-year-old.
Yeah. This is the one time I met this kid. Very understandably. This is the one time that happened. And I was, reflecting on this experience with my mom the other day, and then she was just reflecting oh, what age was he at the time? Yeah, that her friend's son that he, without going into further detail, she said he was a troubled kid.
Mm.
And, maybe it's not any business of mine to know in what way, but knowing that it's, maybe you could give him a little grace for what happened, but it adds up with the experience.
Mm.
And I'm not trying to besmirch this kid in any way, but the fact is that, this is what I know of him.
I think some besmirching is warranted.
I mean, it is, I think there is he did a pretty awful thing.
Yeah.
By going against what his mom asked.
Yeah.
With somebody who he'd never met,
mm-hmm.
who's much younger,
didn't, you guys had probably never talked
mm-hmm.
about what movies you'd seen.
And he has to know that this movie is inappropriate for a kid as young as Julian was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny too, because I think back on when I saw the movie as a teenager. I was probably 17 or 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it through the eyes of somebody who was interested in someday becoming a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And this movie has kind of lived on a little bit in infamy in some ways for, I think, some of the scenes, particularly the one that you mentioned.
Right.
But I think also for some of the ingenuity that went behind making this film.
Because Raimi and his team are so young. This is, as you said, his debut. It's like very low budget.
Yeah. And you can see the seams a little bit, but there's also just a lot of creativity that goes behind that film.
Yeah.
And so I remember watching it. It was framed not for me, but by myself as like, this is how you make a movie when you have like no money.
Yeah.
And I was definitely watching it old enough to, I think, understand some of what is really transgressive and kind of awful about the film.
Yeah.
But also more trying to look at it more from a technical perspective, which is not something I think a 7-year-old has pretty much any concept of.
Right.
It all,
right.
it like,
it's all real.
It's all
to a
happening.
7-year-old.
Yeah. It's all really happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a, just because of some of the things I had seen by that age, there was a part of me that did understand like this is just a movie, but still even in that understanding, like thinking like, what kind of sick person comes up with shit like this? I'll get to it a little more as this goes on, but like, I have a lot of respect for Sam Raimi. It's, this is just, one like qualifier of his legacy that I'll never totally get over is this, my introductory experience with his filmography. And so, that infamous scene happens. I have no concept of what's going on, but one thing I know, contrary to what that kid said, it's not funny. I wasn't laughing at it.
Yeah. And it's not meant to be funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing about this franchise too, which I'll come back to, is that like, especially as it goes later on, like the movies take on a more comical tone. And so I think this kid was also trying to downplay it to me, that he was like, I, praise for my 7-year-old self. I was a little bit cautious going into this. And I was like, he was saying that like, oh, the possessed characters in this movie, they just push you around. They don't do anything too bad. Wrong. Very, very wrong. But that kind of stuff happened. But I also had the ingenuity to ask, does anyone die in this movie? And he said, all of them do except Ash. So, I mean, like, I think that gave me enough of a sense of what was going to happen. The stuff that really scarred me in the movie wasn't that scene that I described. It was some stuff that happened later on, which I really don't care to describe. It was, like...
That's fine.
Yeah. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then I'm not going to be the one to tell you to change that. This is a movie that many adults will very, very understandably never watch too. I read somewhere that it's considered one of the goriest movies ever made.
Yeah, it's interesting because this movie is also in some ways beloved. Like this, some people absolutely love this movie.
Yeah.
Which I think I would guess has a little bit more to do with some of what I was mentioning earlier, which is when you frame it
more
as
like Raimi's legacy and like where he started.
Yeah, and that this movie like was made for very little money, but kind of has this like this kinetic energy and tries to do so much with so little.
Yeah,
that there's value in a movie for that.
Right.
And again, everyone's mileage is different.
But also that it's not the only movie like that. There's plenty of other like arguably masterpieces made for next to no money. Like, I mean, look at the Cassavetes filmography, look at Hester Street, look at Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Other movies made like, well, Hester Street had some money behind it, but there was no production company. That was made totally independently. So it's like, I get that and that's, admittedly one area where if I have any modicum of like admiration for the story behind this movie, it's there. It's in the story of the ingenuity. But at the same time, there are different movies that I feel more comfortable, drawing that inspiration from than this one.
I get that. Yeah.
But so, then, some of the gory scenes happen. As I said, this is a movie that goes from 0 to 60. And the last thing I remember is one scene where the camera, because this movie's famous for its camera movements, it breaks through a window and there's a scream. Right after that happened, then this kid's mom came up to check in on us, saw what was going on, and immediately put an end to it and scolded her son. And then it was over. And where I've like read plot summaries of what happens later. I'm very thankful it didn't get any further.
Yeah.
But I had seen enough to be scarred. And I think the thing about this movie and anything like it that, if you see it when you're not ready for it, the thing that's really scarring is seeing a previously sympathetic character turn.
Yeah.
Good point.
A character that like who is like in trouble suddenly become possessed by the evil force. That's a trope in like possession horror or zombie movies. It's like it's not distinct to this movie, but I think the way that movie does it is very like over the top, and it was frankly very, very difficult to take. Also, the fact that it's just true of a lot of movies of the time that, you know, when a character gets possessed, it's not just that they're possessed, they become physically disfigured too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that, well, you know, a little bit apropos of what was said about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that I think it's very difficult for kids and even adults to see intentional disfigurements of the human face.
Yeah, that's why body horror is, I think, such an effective genre from like a horror standpoint.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because I do think it's something that freaks out even adults.
Mhm.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I think it also has to do somewhat with the undercurrents of body horror. I think a lot of people that make really effective body horror films are also sometimes trying to say something about what's happening with the body horror.
Mhm.
Like I think Cronenberg is kind of famously somebody who like doesn't just do that for fun. Like there's a message behind it that can translate to adults being freaked out on a level that I think even younger audiences like won't really get it. There's a visceralness when you're a kid to seeing something like that. But there's some even more like lasting, I think. Like I think of The Fly, which is like an incredible film, but like that movie continues to stay with me because of what I think that movie's trying to represent.
The meaning behind it.
Yeah, but to your point also about like a previously sympathetic character that goes rogue. You know, I think it's one of the reasons why a movie like The Shining also feels really, really messed up.
Yeah.
And then I would go even a little sooner. I mean, when I was watching Hereditary, there's a moment in that movie that like, to me, like makes, and this is purely just from like my perspective, but makes Evil Dead feel kind of like playful because I almost kind of don't want to watch that movie again because of how that turn made me feel.
Yeah. But it went the opposite way for me, where Hereditary was the easier movie to take because I saw it.
Because you saw it older.
As an adult.
I was 22 when I saw it. I saw it at an appropriate age, and that movie, well, something I actually kind of appreciate about that movie, and I think is a little more prevalent in modern horror movies, is that like a character can be possessed without that meaning they become physically disfigured. Another movie that does that pretty recently, light spoiler for this movie, but Weapons.
I was thinking that as well.
Yeah, where it's like the characters become possessed. It's clear that they're under some kind of force. You're not supposed to root for them at that time. But, you know, it doesn't make you look at something gruesome. Or, you know, not with everyone. There's certain characters who do get a little bit of that in that movie. But like, I feel like that's more prevalent now. And I prefer that because it's just, that feels more, if they're supposed to be allegories for real life, that just feels more honest.
Yeah.
That like a lot, you know, some of the scariest people don't have anything weird about their appearance.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole, you just described for me, the whole thing about Hereditary. That's so troubling. The other thing I'll say too is when I saw Hereditary, I was a young father. And I think when you become a parent and you see that type of thing, it is like a nightmare beyond nightmares that you would ever subject your kid to a situation where they have put so much trust in you and suddenly all you want to do is harm them.
Yeah.
That to me, there's like almost nothing, like even saying that is almost like makes my skin
You're
crawl.
like, that is my worst nightmare.
It absolutely is. And so when I see something like that played out in a film, it hits me on a level. I have a pretty good stomach for a lot of stuff that will undo me.
Yeah. And well, I mean, there's no parental theme in the movie that I was forced to watch, but you know, a parent, thank goodness, put an end to it.
Yeah. There we go. That was the parental influence.
Exactly. And this was just, you know, cognitive dissonance, but I went away from that thinking that the other man in that movie who's not Bruce Campbell, I don't know the actor's name, but I thought that it was Mark Hamill at first.
Oh, well, that's your Star Wars.
Yeah, as a kid, it was a Star Wars.
And that was where I felt like, oh, did my hero, did Luke Skywalker do that movie? No. And it was just, I was relieved to find out later it's not Mark Hamill. But so then, like, as I said, I didn't really register what this experience had done to me immediately, but later that night it started to hit me. And then, like, I was thinking back on it, and you know, when I was talking with my mom about this a few days ago, she said that I looked blank at the time, unable to process what I had seen. And I remember, like, you know, asking my mom, you know, like, this stuff isn't real, right? And she's like, no, of course, nothing like that could ever happen. So it's, like major props to my mom there for helping me
for sure
get through the initial stage of that.
But you're like, you hear this.
Yeah,
for sure. But you hear this as a kid and you're like, that's helpful.
Mhm.
But you still have that part of you where you're like, but could it?
Right.
Well, but
Good point.
I think the more prevalent concern in my mind was just that original feeling of like what kind of sick mind came up with this stuff. And I think that, those of you who have like an easier time engaging with the film's legacy can maybe speak more to this, but I think that Sam Raimi probably fancied himself a provocateur at that young age.
Sure. I think there's some of that running through
a
lot of his films. He kind of wants to do a bit of that.
Yeah, and maybe to a greater degree at the very beginning. This is a movie, unlike with some others that we've discussed, it's not something I can bring myself to watch again. I can see every other, including the sequels, Sam Raimi movie, but that's as much of a completist with his filmography as I'll ever be.
You haven't seen the second one, though, right?
I've seen scenes from it.
Because the second one is kind of a rehashing of the first one. I would not recommend that to you.
Well, but it's
a little more playful, though.
Yeah.
Like it's
It
doing
is.
more for...
But I think with the amount of trauma that you have around the first one, I still would not recommend the second one to you.
interesting to hear.
Yeah, I might say the same.
Yeah.
But I would say it's probably easier because of that.
That's possible.
the tone.
I think that if the sequel had been put on for you, maybe slightly less scarring.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly. Maybe not.
And that looks ahead a little bit to what I had of a reclamation process with this, but the most immediate effect, like I remember, just like looking to my mom for comfort after that happened. And well, I didn't consider myself much of a scaredy cat before this experience, but then I was. Sometimes experiences like this can awaken OCD and tendencies like that exist in people. And I remember like suddenly I was like scared of the dark and, just had these tics. Immediately knew I couldn't say the movie's title. I didn't even like to say the words in it on their own. That's a little different now, but suddenly I was much more reserved about subjecting myself to more adventurous movie experiences in the immediate aftermath. And this happened like I was about to start second grade when this happened. It was like other things I was watching, like Spielberg was as adventurous as it got before then.
Yeah.
I was still a kid watching cartoons at that time. But so that's the initial experience. And then, then there are the ripples in the years that follow. And so unsurprisingly, this was something where if I was ever like watching a TV show that mentioned it, or if I was on like a web page that mentioned it, I was off of it immediately.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't even want to see it brought up. And that's, one of the first effects. But then this is also like, this is the mid 2000s when this happened. And Sam Raimi is relevant as a director at that time because of the other franchise he's best known for, Spider-Man.
What did you think of those movies?
I was a fan as a kid, and this
because those are kid-friendly movies.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah.
It's like at least like not 7, maybe, but slightly older.
But slightly being the operative word there, because I saw the first one when I was 8, and I was fine. But that's that's got more of that hero's journey thing about it, and it's like it's a superhero movie. A kid can like. This is not like the Unbreakable type brand of superhero movie.
Right,
it's where it's like more existential. This just comic book action fun.
Did you know at the time that it was the sicko that
no,
that it was a
debut
Raimi
you
movie?
had seen?
No, I did not know. I just thought like, cool action movie. And I watched that when I was 8. I watched Spider-Man 2 and 3 when I was a little older than that. And what I did start to tell after a while, I didn't know until after I'd seen all of them that it was the same director, but I could tell that like whoever made these had like some horror experience under his belt. There's particularly a scene in the second Spider-Man of that trilogy. Like it's when Dr. Octopus, his tentacles become sentient. And that scene is full on horror. And I remember thinking like, oh, whoever made this like has some skill with that. And one thing I did notice that made me a little suspicious was just I would like remember like looking on IMDb and it, went over Bruce Campbell's name and I saw that he was best known for playing the main character of the movie I had seen. I was like, uh-oh. And I was a little curious, like he made cameos in all the Spider-Man movies. I was like, why is he there? And then later on, I did find out that this was the same director, and I was pretty disillusioned by that, even though it explained a few things. And then I think after that point, I not soured, but I avoided those movies for a while. But so then that happens. And just in general from this experience, like I was still a kid. I didn't know how to talk about it. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do that now, but I had a lot of like bottled up anger about that whole experience. And, it went between, being rightfully directed at that kid who showed it to me. That I think was pretty straightforward, but also sometimes when that didn't feel satisfying, it was just, I would be like angry at the movie for existing.
Yeah.
It was a difficult thing to cope with. And so then, where like I started to feel a little bit more, I started to gain some more self-confidence was that it was hard for me to handle horror for a while. So then anytime I was able to sit through something that was of that genre or adjacent, I considered it a victory every time I could do that without being freaked out by it. So I remember seeing, like, my mom took me to see I Am Legend in the theater when I was 10, which she was a little apprehensive about, but I kind of figured, I think on some level we both did, well, it's like, it's a Will Smith movie. It's probably not going to get that intense. And I was fine watching that. This may sound a little funny to some ears, but I'm totally serious when I say that this helped me. So for context, like, because of what Sam Raimi's debut depicts, that I had difficulty with some other things that are similarly portrayed, notably like vampire horror. That was difficult for me for a while too.
I mean, yeah, because that's kind of Evil Dead like.
Yeah,
the way the disfigurement, the bloodiness,
but also just like good characters turning, that kind of thing too, depending on what it was. And so I'm totally serious when I say that it was therapeutic for me to sit through Twilight. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
Well, they're not scary. They're just sparkly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the thing. And that it's more a romance than it is scary. So like when I saw that, I felt proud of myself for sitting through that movie. And then like that was, that came out when I was 11, and I didn't really like go full on into horror again until I was 15. And the victorious viewing there was a movie that's already come up, The Shining.
Yeah.
And I kind of figured like, I went in knowing the cachet, thinking like knowing that this movie's supposed to be scary, but it's considered like one of the best movies ever made. And my mom said that was a movie that's scarier as an adult than as a kid.
Yeah.
I sat through it. There were definitely a few scenes in it that woke me up the night after, but the overwhelming feeling was that was brilliant.
And this seems like, you're kind of a budding cinephile at this point. So it's almost like you're watching it to a similar way that Emilio was watching the movie you had seen as a kid.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because you're like, oh, well, I'm seeing it from like almost an educational perspective.
Right.
You're like, I've been told this is good.
Yeah.
So let me be open-minded. I'm not going to maybe respond quite as viscerally.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually kind of using my brain here in a way that I'm my head is working more than my heart, maybe. At least on first viewing.
Yeah. And that's also, The Shining is a movie that, unlike the one that I was forced to watch too young, that's a movie that has a lot of famous scenes that are like taken out of the movie, like here's Johnny, all that kind of stuff. Like I was a little prepared for that one. And Sam Raimi's debut is like, it's a well-known movie, but I've noticed that you don't see like out on the internet, you don't see a lot of thumbnails from it. And there is a good reason for that.
Yeah.
More from the second movie you do. So that like that, those were some like experiences where I felt, I was like growing stronger in my resilience to this kind of thing. And, I guess something that I was wrestling with, to some extent, I still think about it, was just that I knew I was an adventurous viewer. I like to seek things out. My parents were reasonable about what they let me see, in that they let me see PG-13 movies before I was 13, but they knew when something was inappropriate. So they generally trusted me a lot with what I watched. And so I was like, I wanted to see a lot. I was curious even in the horror genre, but still knew I couldn't come back to Sam Raimi's debut. And then so that was just something I, couldn't totally reconcile for a while. But then another thing that happens is that sometimes this franchise that I got a premature exposure to would be curiously, it would be like recommended to me.
How do you deal with that conversation?
I mostly didn't deal with it. If people would ask me if I had seen those movies, I would be like, no. But sometimes there would be an opening where, like, depending on who I was talking to or how much space there was, I'd say like, yeah, I watched the first one when I was 7. I don't think so. And
that's probably enough to shut it down with most people.
Right. But what was weird about that to me was that like people often brought that up brought those movies up kind of as examples of like movies with comic violence and stuff like that. And the first one I had seen was totally straight ahead horror. So I was confused by that. And people said like, yeah, those are some pretty funny movies. And I'm like, you think that shit's funny?
Again, I think it's
Yeah.
the second one. And,
Exactly.
One is
and I think people mix the two up sometimes
They definitely
when
mix the
you're
two up.
reflecting that.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I was thinking back a little bit on this. I knew we were going to talk about Evil Dead. Evil Dead has a very similar trajectory to another film that was made super duper cheap and then was kind of remade a couple years later, which is El Mariachi and Desperado, the Robert Rodriguez films.
Right.
Okay.
And those
Yeah.
films are often mistaken as well. And there's a really, I think, a kind of a similar vibe to them where one is really scrappy and is just making the most of every little thing that it can. It feels like this person is throwing the kitchen sink at the film and trying to put every possible thing that they thought of on screen, every inventive thing that they thought like would catch someone's attention. And then the sequel is like, well, how would this look if we actually had a budget? I think that the original Evil Dead is trying to go for more straight horror.
Yeah.
Because if it was trying to strike a more comedic balance, I don't think Raimi would have been like, I think this movie is going to be as successful. I think it's like, you got to choose a lane. And so he does that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he has more of a career, he's able to kind of revisit it with a little bit more of like, well, how would I really love for this movie to like exist with a better budget? And it's more tongue in cheek, and it's the inventiveness is more like kind of gag like than it is like, oh, let's like try to kind of mess with your brain or just show you the craziest thing I can show you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, the latter is, I think, a young kid is not primed for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that I think a young kid might recognize some of the cheekiness that's in the remake.
Yeah. And that is a pretty good setup for like what I had of a reclamation with this kind of stuff, which was more when I was around 18 or 19. And it's when I say reclamation, it's not that I became a fan. I still can't bring myself to rewatch the original movie. But it was just a sense that was a time when I was really starting to go full speed ahead as a cinephile, and looking up things, educating myself, seeing lots of things I had waited to see for years. And I kind of figured, well, if I'm going to be this plugged into movies in general, I'm going to have to reckon with this franchise sooner or later. I knew it's not like a universally beloved thing, but it's well known enough that it comes up here and there. So my way of doing that was I just wanted to know like what's going on with these movies. I read about them, looked up their Wikipedia entries, read plot summaries, and kind of figured out what's up with all these changing tones. And then I finally understood, oh, okay, so that like the second and third ones are like meant to be tonally different. They're more comical. And I mean, the third one doesn't even share the title, Army of Darkness. Like there are these big jumps in tone and aesthetic details. And so all of these like really conflicting impressions I had of the franchise beforehand suddenly made sense. And that was a weird thing about living with this experience, and the legacy of that movie, of that franchise specifically for a while, was just like cutting in all these different directions. Why? Like how they just didn't make sense to me. But then that happened. And I, in order, I guess, to cope with it, I feel like if there's a thumbnail from that franchise that is maybe the most widely circulated, it's that wild-eyed image of Bruce Campbell from the second movie, where he's like looking straight into the camera, which is, that's not a scary image. It's just kind of like weird. So, but I remember I just like went onto YouTube, and once it was clear to me that movie was like not edgy in the way the first one was, I watched a few scenes from it, and I was like, okay, I see the difference here. I remember watching like the groovy scene, all that stuff, and that's a weird little moment too. It's just like, oh, well, what goes on in Sam Raimi's mind to think a guy has just replaced his severed hand with a chainsaw, and okay, that's the word you choose.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I finally understood what was going on with these movies more. I read about like their histories of production and the legacy that they had. I was something else. I mean, then I finally understood that like one of those scenes that I had watched was a scene of sexual assault, and that made me really mad to find out. It also made me really mad to find out that for a time that this movie, the original one, had been rated X. And I was just thinking like, oh, okay, so like this, this kid who showed it to me downplayed it as though like it's not that bad, and it was fucking X-rated. Just like, get the fuck out of here. And I took some comfort in knowing that like the second one was generally considered the best. Like the movie that didn't traumatize me was the one that people like arguably drew the most influence from, and was maybe the most beloved of the franchise. I mean, something else that comes up a lot in the lore of the first movie is that the assistant editor of it was Joel Cohen. And that was a little tough to take too, because unlike with Sam Raimi, I was conditioned a Coen Brothers fan.
Yeah.
But still, like, my hot take about, like, there's, cinephiles will often connect the dots between the Coen Brothers and Sam Raimi. I think it's a bit of an overstated comparison because, yes, they are like collaborators at certain points. Yes, the Coens co-wrote Raimi's film Crime Wave. Yes, Raimi co-wrote with them on the Hudsucker Proxy. That does happen. But other than that, like, any homages or references to the others in their films amount to little more than Easter eggs and cameos. I think you can say that some of their movies are in dialogue with one another, but they don't generally make me think of one another.
It's interesting because I'm kind of the opposite. I feel like when I see Blood Simple, I see a lot of Evil Dead.
Well, but having just rewatched that movie, Blood Simple, a few days before this recording, I disagree.
Yeah,
I feel like the themes on the Coen Brothers' mind from the beginning are, I just said mind singular.
That's fine.
People talk about them as a two-headed director, but I feel like it's of a totally different league. That from the beginning, it's more like that movie has kind of like a Western vibe to it. It's more philosophical, and like, from the beginning, Raimi's got a little more of like a comic book thing going on.
Right. But I would just say, like, aesthetically, when you see Blood Simple, and I would say the one that really I feel the Raimi in is Raising Arizona. That to me is an absolute cartoon film.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot of kind of interesting layers and stuff. But it's the thing that I come back to on when I think of the Raimi and the Coens connection is I think about what the Coens said about making Blood Simple. They wanted to make a movie that was an exploitation film, basically. They actively were like, how do we start our careers? We make a film with not a lot of money, but that has like a hook to it. There's a thriller element. Maybe there's some kind of like a scene or two that is just like kind of gory and is like a little bit like, whoa, is going to shock you. And that actually is one of the reasons why I think kind of spiritually, they kind of share that a little bit with Sam Raimi. That I think Raimi was kind of thinking the same thing. And then as you see their careers develop, you see that Raimi's a little bit more of like, he's a little more playful. And the Coens are a little bit more introspective. And I think go in directions. And I would say that definitely by Miller's Crossing, the Coens have really just kind of like surpassed.
Yeah,
I think what Raimi influence.
The Coens make Miller's Crossing, Raimi makes Darkman, and there's like a palpable divergence from there. But like, I think what I take issue with about that comparison is that sometimes people frame it as though they're kind of like giving Raimi credit for some of the Coens' ideas, and like that's the thing I have a problem with, because I think that the Coen stories like come from their own place. Like all of their influences were there before they even knew of Sam Raimi. And that's why I think that, point out the connections that are there, but at their cores, like they're different people. They make different movies.
Yeah. I think I would just say, I don't know that when people are talking about the Raimi influence that they're trying to imply that the Coens like stole anything, or like that Raimi is like more intellectual and he's the originator. And I don't think that's the implication at all. I think it's like these people were friends and collaborators. And I think all of us that are artists like draw inspiration from friends and past collaborators.
That's the thing, like friends and collaborators. That I think is apt to say.
Yeah.
And there's a hunger, I think you feel in both of their early works to kind of to stamp themselves. I would say that they kind of work a little bit with some of the same kind of visual aesthetic for a little while.
Yeah.
But
I would say that's true.
But I your point is well taken. That like I do think that rather quickly you see them diverge in a way that it makes the early comparisons, while I think they are appropriate, seem kind of funny.
Yeah.
They're like, you're like, whoa, really? Like the Coens and Raimi? It's
That's
like,
the thing. We're
yeah.
also now looking at this
Yeah.
after decades of each of them continuing to make movies to varying successes.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, are you really?
yeah.
I kind of thought the same thing.
Yeah. But then like watching these films and knowing that, I'm like, oh yeah, like I definitely see it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, that was just, something I've like pondered time and again since, understanding the legacy of both of their, I'm talking about three people, but both of their filmographies. Yeah. So then that reclamation of sorts happens, and I finally understand what the deal is with this whole franchise. And then in the last few years, I mean, there weren't really any developments with this for a while. It just kind of was what it was. But then in the last few years, I don't know if there was anything more than just me. It's like some of it's connected to doing the podcast, but some of it's just me getting older that I've just felt a little more comfortable sharing these stories. And I was, like with friends and loved ones. And if there was if it would come up organically. I remember like the last movie Raimi directed was that Doctor Strange sequel. And around that time, I was talking with past guest on the podcast, my cousin Sylvie, about it. And that was like my moment to mention, oh, by the way, this thing happened to me when I was little. And then that kind of prepared me for, bringing it up now here. One funny anecdote I found out a few years ago about the movie that I personally found very validating. So I have that, my tick about not saying the title. You know who else dislikes that title?
Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi. Yeah. Yeah. The title of the movie was suggested to him by his producers to save money on advertising.
Oh,
the original,
like a shorter title. Yeah.
The original title was The Book of the Dead.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That
And
makes sense.
that, I think that his exact quote is like, that's so stupid. How could something be evil and dead? Yeah, it was something like that.
Watch the movie.
I mean, it is evocative. I will say that, but I think it also just speaks to the bare bones way that this movie came out. They're like, if we can save like money on like 5 characters, we'll do it. Or a producer's going to be like, can we make this happen, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a validating story to hear. And I think that like what developed for him is that he still doesn't love the title, but he's warmed up to it a little bit.
It makes sense since he pivots from that by the third one.
Right.
Like we're not even sticking with this through the whole franchise.
Yeah, which is from what little I know about it, a very aesthetically different movie.
And
definitely.
like genre-wise, completely
so
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, we started this podcast, the second episode we ever did, we covered a Raimi movie.
I kept meaning to ask you about this. So what was your thought? Like, we didn't know this at the time.
Not
so
at all.
for those that were not listening to us at the origin, one of our early episodes, we discussed Raimi's A Simple Plan. So what were your thoughts when this was pitched?
So I had no problem with covering that movie.
Yeah.
I figured, it's like the portion of the conversation where this could have come up was edited out. So you don't hear it in the episode that we released, but there was a moment in there where, like a little bit of this, like, cause we talked about Fargo in the same episode, this tangential connection between Raimi and the Coens came up, and I was wondering, like, should I say something here? But we diverted from it pretty quickly enough that it was kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to open up that can of worms now.
Save the can for
now.
A full episode several years later.
Yeah, exactly. So like that happened, and that's notably like I found A Simple Plan to be a very agreeable movie for my sensibilities.
Yeah.
And it's one of the points that we came to there is that like the Coens and Sam Raimi are in pretty different places in their careers at that point, but those movies come together on the surface level detail that there's sno in them and they're noirs.
That's one thing. Yeah,
sure. Piles of money.
Snow and piles of money, and that's like. I feel like that, if you're going to compare the filmographies other than like Crime Wave and The Hudsucker Proxy, that's the most comfortable I feel really comparing them. And even those movies we said have a lot of differences too.
For sure.
They definitely do.
Yeah. That's also like, when I think about like the Coen brothers being a beloved by many, like recommended to me strongly by my parents, and that Sam Raimi is not someone who would have held the same place for my parents. I don't think they're very familiar with his movies, but even if they were, I don't really think that they would be into his sort of thing. The one exception to that is A Simple Plan. Which I know they've seen.
I think that really stands out in his filmography.
Yeah, that's
like as just being different from everything else he's made.
Yeah. Exactly. And I sort of said this earlier, but I'm open to seeing the bulk of the rest of his movies. Like was re-seen some parts of the Spider-Man movies, and I can see like his stylistic touches. Open to seeing like our past guest Matt Friedman highly recommended Darkman. Yeah, like I can watch that. The Quick and the Dead.
You can skip Oz the Great and Powerful.
I figured.
Yeah, that's not very good.
Yeah. And there's even a part of me that maybe and as the like my overcoming of this trauma continues, is open to seeing the sequels because I know they're more comical in tone. And honest, on another level too, I just feel a little more resilient to that sort of thing now. And I've seen other movies that are probably just as scary or even scarier at an age when it's appropriate to do so.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I said that I would not recommend the sequel to you. I think if you approached it as like a reclaiming and kind of steeled yourself for it, then I would respect that.
Yeah.
But I also would respect your choice to not do that.
Thank you. Sure. But yeah, like having, understood where the influence goes and watching films made by directors influenced by Raimi, be it Edgar Wright or...
Oh yeah, he's another guy.
Yeah.
Definitely. Who I think would have like loved the Evil Dead. Yeah.
It was the second one that in particular, I think that was a formative movie for him.
Makes
but
sense.
That's one of the places where I stand in light of this. And the latest event, if you'd call it that, in this saga, actually this was totally unexpected. It happened earlier this year for me. I watched Donnie Darko for the first time about 6 months ago, and that I didn't know this going in, but that has a scene where there's an iconic still from that movie where you see Donnie and Gretchen and the rabbit sitting in a movie theater, and what should be on the screen, but
Evil Dead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I not only did I watch Donnie Darko, I was in a theater watching it. I was at the Metrograph. And as soon as that came on, it was a very conflicting moment for me because on the one hand, I don't like interruptions in my movie experiences. I like to see things continuously. I did not want to get up from my seat and leave for that scene. But on the other hand, I was sitting in my seat just praying it didn't get that far into the movie, in what they showed. And luckily it doesn't in Donnie Darko. They just show like some of the early scenes from that movie when nothing scary happens. It's also kind of implied in that movie that like Donnie has a big, I don't know what you'd call it, but like
a realization
as that's happening that, triggers, some like bad impulses in him. And that felt a little validating to me too, though, seeing like this movie portrayed as the nexus of like something of like some very
bad influence.
Well, as a bad influence, but also just like as, something that leaves very fraught impressions on people. But also, I mean, where, I felt a little vicarious relief was that Donnie's girlfriend, Gretchen, sleeps through the movie. And I thought, good for her. But yeah, so then that happened, and now here we are discussing it. And then in conclusion, this experience of my childhood has like, I want to have kids someday. I'm going to be extremely vigilant about making sure nothing like this ever happens to them.
Don't send them off with any slightly older children that can't be trusted. Again, this is certainly a mistake that is forgivable. This is not your mom's fault. It is all on this child.
I've understood that from the very beginning.
It is,
But you're like, now I'm going to be extra vigilant about the kids my kid's allowed to hang out with.
Well, it's also to be understood that like my mom didn't know about this movie either. Like,
totally.
The kid's mom did, but she told him not to put it on. So like,
absolutely.
These experiences form you. You don't have to thank them for happening, but we learn what we learn. And, in my, like, I'm not saying this to aggrandize my experience, but as someone who watches a lot of movies and has now heard many stories about people's traumatic viewings of things when they were too young, I really do think that Sam Raimi's debut film is one of the worst things a kid could be exposed to when they are, or a person could be exposed to when they are not ready for it, viewing wise.
I think I would agree with the kid part of it for sure. This is a pretty terrible movie for a child to have to see, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. It's, just the same way you wouldn't show a kid the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You wouldn't show a kid A Clockwork Orange. You wouldn't show a kid Requiem for a Dream. But like,
those also.
Not just horror movies, just like things that are of a certain intensity.
Well, I would put 8mm up there, which is that like, this is not a movie that has like vines from a tree sexually assaulting a woman. It has some terrible stuff in it.
Yeah.
But it's like, there is nothing really inventive about what's awful about that movie. It is just a dark, dark film.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because, you know, you saw that when you were 7.
Yeah.
And you saw your film like around that same age. And for me, the one that stuck with me was I was a little
You're like
older.
a preteen.
I was like a preteen, and it's that thing where it's like I almost feel like, and I'm not trying to just say this to say this, but if I had seen Evil Dead when I was 11, I don't think it would have affected me the way 8mm did, because I was kind of watching this movie being like, this is an adult film. Like, let me like try to see what's going on.
What's the world of an adult?
What's
like?
exactly? And I'm like,
bad.
And I'm like, this is the world of an adult. Like, I feel like if I was,
it's like you would maybe be able to conceptualize the Raimi movie being a horror film that is about things that are not real.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
In a way that this
8mm,
movie,
it's like this is set in our reality.
Exactly.
These things can and do happen.
And apparently happen. Yeah. And so that was like a real shocker for me. And I think that's what I find so interesting about it is like where you are at in your own life, how it imprints. Like, what is that thing? And for me, it was something that's like not so much like a terrible visual, but like this kind of an attitude. There's an attitude to the film that is just like bleak and awful, and there is no hero's journey.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and there are some things that happen that like, that would be dark in any way, shape, or form. So,
even like with the movie that I watched, I could tell as a kid that it makes me think of the story that Roger Ebert told of being at an opening night screening of Night of the Living Dead, where a bunch of kids were allowed in because the movie was unrated, and that the first half of the movie, they seemed to be okay, maybe even enjoying it. But that by the second half, when it was clear there was not going to be a happy ending, they started to cry and leave the theater. And that, you know, what little I saw of Sam Raimi's debut, I didn't know how it was going to end at that time, but I knew it wasn't going to be happy. And that when I, you know, read plot summaries years later and found out that was indeed the case, it just validated my original feelings. I feel like too, Emilio, in your case of like watching 8mm at that age, when you're like, you know, 11 or 12, you're like kind of just on the brink of starting to understand human sexuality.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that kind of thing. You're on that point where you like, there's a lot you don't understand about it, but you're just starting to conceptualize. I can see how that would hit hard too.
Yeah.
And so then, I think that my movie trauma experience, it was like, you know, it's going to make me very vigilant about what like the kids that I hopefully have will see. And I think that up until some experiences in my adolescence, it was the worst trauma of my conscious life. I don't think it is now. And, you know, those are stories for a different situation, but like, it, you know, it left this imprint on me that I've spoken about now, and thank you both for giving me the space to do that.
Of course, man. I hope that this has been therapeutic for you.
It has, and frankly, it's been easier than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And we're glad that you trust us enough to be in the room as you share this.
Yeah, well, I mean, to illuminate that a little more, I never really did talk about this. Like, I've had therapy before. I never really brought this up there, partially because I just kind of went into all my past
non-movie trauma.
Well, non-movie stints of therapy, not looking to unpack this kind of thing specifically. But
right.
I also thought, you know, like maybe talking to someone who wasn't necessarily a cinephile, it would be more difficult.
They may not get it.
So this is really like us doing this podcast has really felt like the perfect space to unpack this. And I, you know, ever since we last year discussed Night of the Living Dead, and inevitably in the Not to Be Confused, this movie came up. I started to think like, you know what, like, yeah, it's difficult to talk about, but I feel like if I'm going to do it anywhere, this is a good space for it. And it has been. So thanks again.
Oh man, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was all the way back then that the germ of this came up.
Yes.
It was a full year ago.
On some level, I mean, you know, second episode we ever did, we talked about Sam Raimi. I kind of figured as early as that point, like, I am going to have to bring this up sooner or later, aren't I?
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's like, you know, and hearing all the other things that like our guests in the recent episodes have shared too. I mean, it's interesting to get the range here, and it kind of confirms my sense of just how truly inappropriate the movie I saw was for a kid, as opposed to something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which walks the line between like kids entertainment and adults entertainment, or like Poltergeist, which is scary, but it's PG. So kids just, have an access to it that they don't to a lot of other things, or like Michael Jackson's Thriller video, where like it's scary, but it has a catchy pop song tied to it. So there's like kind of a perfect hook. And a lot of people really don't know, like when the scary stuff happens in that it's going to be there. There's everyone, or maybe not everyone, most people have an experience like this. And I hope that our collection of stories have effectively illuminated the spectrum of those kinds of things.
Yeah, I hope that you guys listening have enjoyed listening to the stories from our past and recent guests as well. And if you still have one of these that you would like to write in on, we would still love to repost it on social media. If you're open to that and would like to email us or DM us, then you can do that. Our email is sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this whole experience has really given new meaning to sleepless cinematic.
Yeah, losing sleep.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
in
but
many ways.
I think these are the movies that originally rendered us sleepless.
Yeah. Or made that sleep very unsettling for a little while, at least for me.
If it happened at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys, in addition to this podcast, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can also contact us via email, as was just said. We would love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod, all one word, @gmail.com. I am not on Letterboxd, but I know that the two of you are.
Yes, you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold. And if you're listening to us for the first time, thanks so much for finding us. But if this is the 5th or 6th or even 70th time you've listened to us, thank you so much for sticking with us. We've really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots and tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Groovy.